Welcome back to Comics Are Dope, the podcast. I'm your host, BJ Kicks, and I'm excited about today's episode. I'm always excited about the episodes upcoming. But anyway, you saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. Today I'm talking to the legendary writer, Greg Burnham. Maybe he doesn't want to be called legendary because his career is so young, but this man is a legend on the convention circuit, as we'll get into in the conversation. And speaking of conventions, Greg, not satisfied with conquering the indie comic market and the convention circuit, is like, you know what? I'm going to start my own con. And so Greg Burnham and Darren Flood have started the Atlantic Comic Con. The inaugural Atlantic Comic Con is going down on August 17th and 18th, 2024. It's in Norfolk, Virginia at the Sheraton Norfolk Waterfront Hotel. Fun fact, that is the hotel that my wife and I honeymooned at 10 years ago. That's crazy. Anyway, a great hotel, a great location. You know what I'm saying? You can go attend the con. There are people going to be there like Larry Stroman and Todd Johnson of Tribe fame, Aletha Evelyn Martinez, who is just legendary, like not to use that word lightly, David Crownson from Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, Greg's partner in crime, Marcus Williams. A lot of different people are going to be at the Atlantic Comic Con. If you are into Black indie comics, you definitely want to be there. If you are into comics at all, you definitely want to be there. It's going to be a great con. It's going to be a great con. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that I can make it happen. I'm already going to too many conventions this year, including New York Comic Con. But man, I want to be in the building. This is going to be an awesome convention. But anyway, Atlantic Comic Con, you can back the Kickstarter right now to get your passes. Obviously, passes will be available in other ways as well. But if you really want to help out the convention, there are about 2 weeks left on the Kickstarter campaign. So you can grab like a one-day pass for $25. You can get a general weekend pass for $50, VIP passes for about $100. And there's all sorts of perks and goodies that you can get by backing the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter will end on June 2nd, Sunday, June 2nd. So go to AtlanticComicCon.com. I'll leave the link in the show notes below for you to learn more. And now let's listen to my conversation with Greg Burnham. Well, guys, today's guest is a legend on the indie comics circuit. This dude is probably found anywhere near your local area at a convention, tabling, selling his creations like Tuskegee Airs, The Search for Sadaka. He's also a member of the inaugural class of the Milestone Initiative. So we've got a lot to talk about with writer Greg Burnham, man. Thank you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah,
I dig the hat too.
Thank you, man. Thank you. You signed this for me last year. I don't know when this was. But
I think I remember that.
It's been a goal of mine to get anyone who's had anything to do with Milestone to sign this hat. So there's still a lot of names missing, but I'll be in New York Comic Con this year. We'll see how many names we can add to the brim. But yeah, man. So like I said, you are a legend on the convention circuit. I got a lot of friends who are in indie comics, and the more I do this channel, the more friends I make. And they all sort of regard you in the same way. Like you are like God when it comes to selling works at a convention, and just, especially in the Black comic space, as people dub it, right? Like when people are looking for a success story when it comes to indie comics, Tuskegee Airs gets mentioned a ton, to the point where I saw there was a group post the other day and somebody was like, yeah, name like Black people doing comics that like, and it was like, don't name Milestone and don't name Tuskegee Airs. That's what everybody says.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm like, that's crazy. But so I think, you're known, in the circuit, right, for you're the success story that people point to. But I want to know a little bit about where that began, where you got the idea to even write comics from.
Oh man. So that one, I was a fan of comics growing up. I'm pretty old. You can see by these grades. And so, and I love to write. I just did it for myself. I had like a little comic that I was making, but it was, my mom had to explain to me that it was, some people could be offended by it. I was a stupid little kid, so I stopped doing it. And then I really stopped because with comics, when I started really becoming aware of my Blackness, it was like I wasn't happy with what was being done with the characters. I wasn't happy with the art. I've since been able to go back and understand it better, understand where we were at the time and all of that. But at the time, I was like, they said this is jungle action? It was like just that name,
Yeah.
man. So I kind of, I say I broke up with comics. But then, like in the 90s come and you see the Milestone guys and the Brother Man guys, and it was like, okay, so we can do this ourselves. I'm intrigued. So like when I moved to Atlanta, once I got my feet settled here and everything, I was married with kids. And I started I had this idea. And of course I wanted it to be like a movie, but I don't have no money like that. And we don't even have a clue what it would take to get into that circle. So I was like, I want to do it as a comic. So this dude, Nicholas, who that I used to play basketball with, I was talking to him about it. He was in the comics. So we started looking for artists and we were searching high and low, getting catfished. It was a mess, people tracing stuff. And, but then we found he met Marcus, Marcus Williams, Marcus the Visual. That's my ace. This is like 20 plus years ago.
Wow.
And and so he brought Marcus to the house, and Marcus is showing me all this, like his little portfolio and stuff. He's probably 19 at the time. And I'm like, oh, this dude is dope. But since I had been catfished, I was like, can you draw something right now in front of me? And so, I described the main character and he drew him and it came out dope. And so I was like, I started telling him the story and all that. He's cracking up laughing. And so it's like, let's do it. There was a contest. I can't even remember who was throwing it. Some kind of online contest for comics. And you could win some money to keep making your comics or whatever. So we were like under the gun, like, yo, we got to get this done in like 30 days. And so we did. I'm coloring flats on my Dell computer with a mouse. It was just, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And, but we created, I have a copy. It's pretty messed up. There's a few of these in the world. It's probably not going to show because maybe if I move. It's called The Starving Artist. And it was like a hip hop kind of based comic.
Gotcha.
It's actually still okay. I kind of want to, I've always wanted to, put it out. I just got to get Marcus to agree because, 20 years, the art was amazing at that time, but you know how it goes.
Yeah, styles change.
Yeah. So yeah, we did that. We printed them up. We were selling them. We were selling them really well, but we were losing money. We were printing them at Kinko's. Like we were doing everything ourselves, like formatting, everything, printing them up. And we were selling them, but we weren't making any money. We were losing money. And so we were like, we need to pull back and learn business better, business and publishing and printing, all that stuff. So we did another kind of business. It was like a hip hop website and promotional business. And we did well with that for a while. And it kind of ran its course. And I was like, man, I want to do these children's books. So I paid Marcus money to draw, for the books. And that same time he was doing, he started doing a comic called Hero Cats with this guy who owned a comic shop out here. And so that helped us learn printing, publishing, who to talk to, how to talk to people to get into conventions, like all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of like the perfect storm. Believe it or not, we were working on a whole, like an entire different property at that time that we were trying to pitch for animation. And I was doing a book signing, and I was like, Marcus, come bring your posters, all that, let's get this money. And we met a guy, an older fellow who was like, he was looking at all the stuff. He's like, this is good, but y'all need to have some stuff about flying. Like, our kids need to know the history of our aviation, like all this. And we just started vibing like we do.
Right.
Marcus was like, man, I was thinking about drawing some young Tuskegee Airmen. I was like, yo, we should do that and put them in the future. And, and then he was like, and it had robots. And I was like, yes, let's go. And that's how Tuskegee Airs was born.
Word. So Marcus has been your partner basically from day one.
Yeah.
How would you describe y'all's sort of creative relationship? How does it work?
So we're at this point, we're different but the same. Like, we both have like these quality standards that we want to make sure come through our work. We both we're really, when we work with each other, it's like all the gloves are off because all we're doing is trying to like sharpen each other to make the best thing we can. So like sometimes it's not for the faint of heart. Like, we've had other people around us while we're brainstorming all that, and like, why are you talking to him like that? Why is he talking to you? But it's like we're like brothers,
Right.
We've been through stuff, like personal stuff that supersedes comics, like supersedes all of this. So so our process is fun, and the ways that we're different is Marcus is always in the stars, and I'm always kind of on the ground. Create like, but what happens is when we work together, it's like this meeting, what I'm saying?
Right.
Where it's like, it comes off like, so the projects that we come up with are usually like big, like, so it's fun.
Nice. So, correct me if I'm wrong. Before you were into writing, or I guess trying to make it a career, your career was in finance.
Yeah.
What does it take to leave behind a career in finance to just start writing full time?
So this is another one of those things, kind of like a perfect storm. I had been there for a while. So I was able, from when we started with Tuskegee in like 2016, all the way up until 19 when I left. I had like a month and a half of vacation time. You know what I mean? So that meant I could take off, and it wasn't the kind of job, like, I could take off almost all the time. I could take off whenever I wanted to. Gotcha. As long as, I put it on the schedule. So that meant I could do all the comic conventions, unrestricted, like all that stuff. So it wasn't like I just abruptly left and didn't have like another stream of income coming in. But what happened in 2019, basically, they said that they were going to shut our site down, and they gave us like the option, like, to move to Ohio. And I wasn't doing that. Like, my daughter was just starting her sophomore year in college, in Savannah, and Statesboro. And that's like 3 hours away from Atlanta. So it was like, I'm not moving 10 hours away from my daughter.
Right.
So, and I already had this stuff going. So it was kind of like all right, I call it like a push. They gave me a little push out the door.
Yeah.
I had been thinking about leaving for a while, but again, daughter in college, like all that stuff, I wanted to make sure I was able to keep my promises to her.
Right.
Make sure she gets all the way through without having $1 billion of debt and stuff.
For sure. Yeah, because I got about that right now. But nah. Okay, so you've got plenty of PTO. You're doing your thing. You mentioned that, like, as you guys are building this business, you start learning more about the convention circuit. How do you sort of, because like I said, you seem to be the poster child for convention success, or like just sort of self-publishing comics. What are the lessons?
Children, because Marcus is there. Like we're there every step of the way. But I hear what you're saying.
So yeah, not to discount anyone else. But you guys together, and I've seen it in action. Like I saw you guys at Heroes Con, and it's just like it's a constant flow. What do you feel was the key to sort of building up to where you guys are now?
I think so. Initially, like there was like when we did the Kickstarter and stuff for Tuskegee Years, it went like outside of our control. Like it went big, like really, really big. And so I can say there's only been one comic convention that we've applied to that we didn't get in. And that was New York Comic Con 1 year. And that was more because it was the year when they were like renovating. And so they didn't have as much space. And we still found a way to get up in there, know. But I'm just saying, like, so that part, I think, I don't know if when you apply, if they Google you or look you up, whatever. But like that's a blessing. We've always been able to get into whatever shows we apply for. So that thing I said earlier about quality, like we, just the banners that we put up, and I can brag about the art because I don't do it.
Right.
You won't hear me really brag about myself, but I'll brag about Marcus all day. Like, so the art, like the idea of these, bright colors and, like our banners, tablecloth, like all that kind of stuff is going to attract people that don't know anything about us a lot of times. And that's cool. When you have the pretty wrapping paper, on but then the part that I like super scrutinize, and Marcus as well, is the writing, the story. Does it hold up? I don't want to ever have like a story, like have something where it's like it's all flash and no pop.
Right.
So we scrutinize, we put a lot of time and energy into the stories that we're telling. And that goes for the Search for Sadaka and the Story of Solace and Little Rock Fount, like all the stuff that I do. It's like story is the most important thing to me. And that's the part that always feels good. Like I did a book fair this past weekend in Atlanta, and I had people, never met them, but they had the books from somehow. There's kids that are like super fans,
right?
And they didn't know I was going to be there, so they're losing it. It's like all of that just, that comes off of, giving them stories that, they can feel.
For sure. Yeah, no, your work is dope. So doing what I do, right? I get a lot of indie comics that sort of come across my desk, and by my desk, I mean my phone, right? And, right now the trend in indie comics, there's a lot of horror leaning stuff. There's a lot of mature stuff, and you got to do what you got to do, especially when it's like, look, if this graphic cover is the difference between eyeballs and not, then I'm gonna do it. Right. But what I love about what you and Marcus do, is that I can enjoy it with my kids, right? Like when we met last year, I was with my daughter. So I got her Search for Sadaka the zero issue and the issue one, and she read it immediately, like it, and it's just like, oh, this is dope. And so I read it, and I'm enjoying it for just the setting, right? It's, if for those who don't know, Search for Sadaka is about this young girl who basically is like a special, right? However you would want to describe like the sort of chosen young girl who doesn't know, why she has these abilities or what, but she's kind of transported into this situation where now she's got to act on these skills that she thought were just innate just because. But she's super smart and she's a fighter. But it's set in Tulsa, Oklahoma around the time or just before like the Tulsa race massacre. And it's like, first of all, the art is amazing, right? The action scenes, it's kinetic, like it's vibrant, like it's kind of leaps off the page. And so you're reading it and you don't feel like it's a history lesson, although you're learning history, right? Or at least you're getting enough history to where you want to go and do research and learn more, right? And then, but at the same time, like you're just entrenched in this story. And then by the time it's over, you're like, oh snap, dang, I need another issue. but I love that, again, I can read the story as, a however old I am, year old, right? And my daughter can read it and enjoy it for different reasons, but we both enjoy it. And there's not, crazy enough, there's not a ton of comics that I can do that with. Tuskegee Airs is the same, right? Tuskegee Airs is a sci-fi book. It's these kids are being taught how to fly in an era where manned flight is illegal. And so, they're on this like sort of covert location, which is the same field or base where the Tuskegee Airmen, like real life Tuskegee Airmen, used to fly out of. And so they've got this fictional descendant of the Tuskegee Airmen that's basically like their master splinter. And they're going on these adventures, these missions, trying to save the world while being blamed for crazy stuff. It really, that's insane. It really is like Ninja Turtles, but it's a whole different setting and set of skills and characters. Like, but the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, dang, this parallel really is here.
No, that and some of that. So when we were thinking first of all, thank you for the kind words, because that makes like when people actually see and feel you through your writing, it's great. But the thing when we were coming up for Tuskegee, we were like, we wanted like a group, and so we kept, like we were pondering like who should be the main character, blah blah blah, and then we were like, we could just do the Ninja Turtle, mode, where it's like there's not one set main character. Like everybody is gonna get their time to shine.
Yeah,
everybody is doing their thing. So yeah, that was kind of how we wanted to handle Tuskegee Airs.
For sure. But yeah, and for those of you, I mean, you guys are listening on audio. I don't know how to describe Marcus Williams' visual style, but it's like it's almost it's right. It feels like it's made for animation. Like if you saw it, you would assume it was already a TV show, right? There's like this sort of sheen on it, but there's movement. Like there's nothing on the page that looks static. Like everything looks like it's jumping out at you. Like even on the let's just sit around and talk pages. Like, and so I think there's something about it visually that just draws people in, but the story is just as good. Like it's just as engaging, and that's rare as well.
Yeah, that part, because believe it or not, man, I seen Marcus. I don't know what he is, man. He's not. I seen him bleed before, so I know he's human.
Right.
But like his ability to like draw what he sees. I was spoiled by it because I've been working with him so long that then I get with somebody else and it's like, no, just draw it like how it looks right there, Right. But yeah, he's got styles. He can do all these different styles. But when we were talking about it, it was like he was like, I think we should do like kind of almost like an anime, but with black, where we actually highlight black features, but something to where when they see it, they know this is it, and this could be directly translated to 2D animation. So that was also intentional.
Yeah, not even just like it's deceptively like good. Like it looks simple, right? But it's not something that you could just do. Like I don't know how to describe this. I should probably stop this audio. This isn't gonna work. But like just looking at these pages, first of all, Tuskegee Airs, like it has robots. Like it has planes that turn into robots and like mech suits. Like what? It's dope.
Yeah. I love one of the things I love about Marcus also is how he's able to capture emotion, like with expressions and stuff.
Yes.
Because it's like I'll have some pages sometimes where I want to say a lot, but I'm like, the look says so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to go too hard on this one because the look, the facial expression is doing it for me. So.
Yeah, I was reading through the Tuskegee Airs trade. So I got issues 1 through 3 in this trade. I need to go order issue 4. Right. But my 2-year-old is literally in my lap going through and pointing out, right? And she's like, oh, his eyes are big. And she's like, is that stars? She's looking at this page like, oh, his eyes are stars. Like, but yeah, so the expressiveness, listen, we could spend an hour just talking about Marcus and art, right? But
the bad man.
All right. So yeah, no, that you guys have an amazing working relationship and creative pairing. So you off the success of Tuskegee Airs on Kickstarter, you guys sort of hit the convention circuit. How often are y'all on the road? Because it seems like every time I see you, you're somewhere else.
Man, we had got to the point where we were doing like over 30 conventions a year. We have dialed it back because we, a lot of behind the scenes work stuff that we're doing. So, but yeah, we actually haven't. This weekend will be our first one this year, I think, which is rare. But it's gonna start ramping up. So
yeah, and then yeah, because like I said, I met you at Heroes Con. I think I've seen you at 2 Heroes Cons, and then you did North Carolina Comic Con, which is a smaller convention. But yeah, man, you guys are always on the road. What tips do you have for creators looking to sort of do the same thing? Like, how hard is it being on the road that much?
It's hard, and it's got to be based off of sales, right? If we're not making enough money, like I don't ever want to be like just breaking even or anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, we need to be making a profit when we go to these shows. So that part, it is difficult. But we've been able to like amass a good amount of fans to where surprisingly, like everywhere we go, we run into people that are fans. I did like a Black History, like a local at our local community center last week, and an elderly fellow, he's a city councilman. He runs up to the table. He's like, Tuskegee Airs. I love Tuskegee Airs. I got 2 of everything, and he's like going off, it's like, so we see this like everywhere we go, and that helps. But we're also like, we look at these, we don't look at it as war, but they're definitely business trips.
Yeah.
So people will be like, partying and doing, we'd be like, yeah, I mean, we'll hang out some, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, we're like, nope, I'm going home to go to sleep because I'm going to have to talk to a million people this weekend.
Right.
And that in itself, like the mental like stamina you have to do that. You can't be tired or like hungover and none of that stuff. So, but yeah, I want to say I don't want to say we cracked the code, but we've just figured out how to make sure that our table is going to be, viewed a lot, and that and we have it set to where we're going to sell stuff.
Yeah.
So our what's the word? Our rate, like when people actually come and stop at the table, sales rate is usually pretty good. But another thing that like neither one of us, we're not like aggressive sellers. Which we call it. Fantastic Frankie just, called me out on one of her videos. Like he's always sitting down.
Always sitting down. Right.
Yeah. But it's true. But because it's like we're not gonna be like, hey, you want to come here? Look at this. Come look at it.
Yeah.
I don't like when people try to sell stuff to me like that. So I'm not gonna do that to anybody else. If I catch you looking, hey, how's it going?
Right.
You can come take a look if you want, like that kind of stuff. But it's just a relaxed table. We have people that decide that our table is the chill spot,
Yeah.
just because it's like really relaxed. We ain't, we're not trying to force you to get away. None of that stuff. It's just like, so I think that goes a long way. But at the end of the day, like, having like a quality product and then one that I can stand on it, not trying to brag or anything, but I feel like what we create is like it's more than legit. It's like, so I don't have to be like over the top, like, please look at my book. Like,
yeah.
Cause it's like, in my mind, I'm like, it's just like when people get the first copy at cons, I'll be like, no problem. And people are like, why didn't you try to sell them more? I was like, if they read it, they'll be back. And if they don't come back, they'll order online. And we see it. Every city we leave, we're gonna go to Seattle this weekend. Well, tomorrow. And then when I get back on Monday and Tuesday, I'm gonna have a bunch of orders from Seattle online orders. So it just kind of works that way.
Yeah, no. I think one thing people don't talk about is how, because you talked about this being profitable, right? Comics are such a low margin business and product, right? And so just the amount that you have to sell or the price you have to sell at to go on a trip, pay for your gas or, your flights, your hotels, the food you're eating, the table fee, plus the cost of the goods you're selling and the time that you spent there. Like when you start working backwards, it's like that the numbers start to sound insurmountable, right? Like tell me what it was like the first time you had to like travel out of Atlanta to go to a con and be like, all right, this is the number. This is what we need to make this a successful weekend.
Well, when we first started going, we didn't even have the book yet. So it was more about like promotion. So we knew we were going to take a little bit of a loss. What we didn't understand is that people were going to buy a boatload of posters. I have children's books. And so we were still selling stuff. So we weren't technically losing money, but that's how it started. But once we got the book, the first convention we took the book to was the Black Comics Fest in Harlem. And I brought, like, I kept asking people, I was like, how many books do I need to bring? How many books do I need to bring? And people kept saying, bring as many as you can. And I'm like, that doesn't, all right, whatever. So I brought like 450. That was a one-day show. It was still one day at the time. I brought 450. We sold the 450.
Wow.
We sold 400. I think we sold 420 something. And then Ariel from Amalgam in Philly, the Amalgam
the coffee shop, right?
Yeah, she just bought the rest of them to sell at the stop. So it was like went home with ton of money and no books to carry back. You know what I'm saying? So that was like, okay, if they're all like this, this is going to be great. Of course they weren't, but what I did, I think my financial mind and also just the mind to like figure stuff out. It's like I would just start gauging how many to bring, like based off of shows that were like the same size. So I know like New York Comic Con, bring as much as you can. Emerald City, for a while, it was bring as much as you can. Blurred Con, bring as much as you can. Some of these other ones, Awesome Con, bring, 300 books. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of some of it's just trial and error.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I think because people were so excited, and plus what we did, and I don't even know if this was intentional. I don't want to make us sound like geniuses, but because we did almost not a whole year, but we in 2017, we did quite a few conventions with no book. So the next year we came back to those same conventions with a book.
Right.
And so people are like, yes, I've been waiting for this, So that was good. But it's always moving, right? Because you get the second book and now you got to quantify, then you get the graphic novel. So it's always moving, but I like to figure it out. And I feel really accomplished when when I, when we hit the goals that we, set.
You ever been in a situation where you felt like you sold out too quickly and now you're like, dang?
So the first time we went to Emerald City, and my friend, we had issues 1 and 2. My friend is from up there. He was like, you guys are going to kill it. He just kept telling me that. So that time, I think I brought like 500. And that's a 4-day show. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. By, I would say, probably about 5 o'clock on Friday, I looked at Marcus and I was like, I don't think we're going to make it. Like, I don't think we're going to make it through. And by the end of Saturday, we had sold out of issue 1s. And we had like maybe 40 issue 2s left.
Wow. And
so I was like, okay, we're done. Because people ain't going to buy, 2 without 1.
Right.
Joke was on me. They bought issue 2s and then they went and ordered 1 online. Some of them were at the table ordering number 1 while they were, talking to us. You know what I mean? So
that's crazy.
Yeah, so by I would say by about 12 o'clock on Sunday, we were out. But I mean, that was a lot of books, that we brought. So I didn't feel bad. I'm not. So you know how you see people posting like, I sold out of this, I sold out of that. You'll rarely hear me say post that because we bring a lot of books.
Yeah.
Last year at DreamCon, they bought all the Sadicas. I think I brought like 250 Sadicas. Bought every one of those. Solace, I sold out of that. That's the book I do with my brother. Sold out of that on the last day. So next year, I was like this year for DreamCon, I'm possibly going to drive so I can bring a boatload so we don't have to worry about selling out.
Word.
I ain't trying to sell, trying to keep selling.
For sure. So you're traveling, right? At some points, at least 30 weeks out of the year. And then are you fulfilling the orders from home, or you have a fulfillment team?
Yeah, no, I am the team. When my kids were younger, they were unpaid labor and they helped out, but I'm the team. My brother will help me sometimes. But I have it kind of down to a science now. And it's like with comics, it's so important to make sure you ship it off in good condition.
Yeah.
And you ship it in a way to where it doesn't get damaged en route. So I always tell people, like, with comics, you never know who's buying. Is it a collector or is it just a grandma who just wants the baby to read the book?
Right.
So, but I have to pack every one of them the same way. So I try to make them, extra secure. And that's trial and error too, because in the beginning, I look at how I was sending stuff out in the beginning and I cringe sometimes, like, ooh. Yeah, never go back there.
Right. And I just sending comics in the envelope, not the business.
Yeah, it was tough times. It wasn't tough times. It was just, learning and figuring it out.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. So Tuskegee Airs is a sort of breakout success. At what point do you guys decide, all right, let's make more things, and what comes next?
Well, for me, and it's no slight, like the thing about Tuskegee is that all the money that gets made, we made an agreement until we, have like some kind of crazy surplus or something. Mm-hmm. All the money that gets made goes back into the business. Okay. So we got to do other stuff for money, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which slows down the process of Tuskegee getting made. Gotcha. And so when that happens, it's like, I still, like, I love to create. I want to keep creating. Mm-hmm. But if Marcus isn't able, like he might be on another job, because this dude is doing character design for TV shows, like all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if he's not able, I want to still be creating. Yeah. So Sadaka was like the first thing that came out of that. And it was just like a story I had in my mind that I wanted to tell, as something that I think is important to tell. And like, it just, my juices just continuously flow. I came up with a new idea this weekend. Mm. And I'm like, yeah, that's like in the queue, like 8 spaces back. But yeah, like Little Rock Files, that came. So Noir is the New Black. Fabrice reached out. Fabrice Sapolsky, who's the founder of Fair Square. Yeah, he asked me to take part in that anthology. And so, I already had this idea for this story brewing. Mm-hmm. And it was like Noir. I was like, yeah, this will be perfect. And so I did it, and I guess people liked it. And Fabrice asked me if I wanted to do like a full, series with it. Mm-hmm. So that's how that came about. And I got a bunch of stuff in the queue, a couple things out for pitches, for pitching right now. So, nice. But yeah, that's how it's just like the constant, like I was telling these people, I had a meeting earlier. If I had the money, I would, like, so much stuff would be getting produced. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. I guess that's the cool thing about being a writer, right? Like, you can write a comic a lot faster than you can draw one. And I mean, if you got the money, you can hire an artist as long as you trust them, right? Yeah. You can have a lot of projects in the works at one time. Yeah. And there's a lot of writers that do that. Like James Tynion is on a tear right now. Like, that dude got like 1 million comics out. Like, how do you have a new #1 every month? Like, that's crazy. But yeah, so my copy of, trying to figure out what I did with it. I just got the Little Rock Files in like over the weekend. Because it's February, so all the retailers are buying the Black comics right now. So I got to get it transferred into my shop. One thing that's in Little Rock Files that is basically in everything that I've read from you is some form of real life history, right? Like Little Rock Files is obviously set in Little Rock, Arkansas. Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas during the time where the story takes place. And his brother was ridiculous, right? His brother's like just a perennial criminal, right? Yeah. And that's mentioned in the book. And there's even like a little editor's note, like, true story. This happened.
Yeah, this really happened.
This really happened. Where's this love for history come from? And why do you, what makes you want to put it in every book?
I'm just like, I was a history major. History was by far my favorite subject in school. Mm-hmm. I liked English. I was good at English, but it was like, it's just, it's what it is.
Right.
But his history was everything for me. You said something about Sadaka, which is how, what used to spark me is all you had to do is give me like a little nugget or something. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going down the rabbit hole.
Right.
So that's kind of the style. It's weird because it's just, I love history so much, and I feel like these certain lessons are stuff that we need to know, we need to hear, because we can with that we can, like it shapes how we can see our future and how we, maneuver in the future. I had a guy, because I it's like I'm not doing it all the way. Yeah, I guess I am doing it on purpose. I had a guy this weekend who read my story in the Milestone Initiative, and he's one of the first people that broke that story down and saw everything that I put in there, because there's a lot in there, but it's kind of, I think like my style is, I don't want you like this, like huffing and puffing while you're reading the page. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I want it to flow really well. But yeah, I put like the levee bombings in New Orleans in 1927 are in there. It's like, it's an entire allegory. Like there's a theme behind it that some people have picked up on, and that makes me happy. Because I'm not going to go out and brag about it or any of that stuff. I just like to see when people catch it. But yeah, it's part of me. I do have some stuff that's coming out that's not really historically based or anything. But yeah, man, even like the Superman story that I did in the Ghouls Just Want to Have Fun, even that is like, it's based off some real, traumatic stuff that happened in history. So I just love history, and it was drilled into my head that if we don't, know our history, we'll be doomed to repeat it.
Right.
And we see it all the time.
Word. Yeah. So, all right. So we got two points of segue, right? We got history, right? And then we've got the Milestone Initiative you just mentioned. As we film this, today is the 31st anniversary of Milestone Comics being published. And you are a member of the founding class of the Milestone Initiative, which, for those who don't know, our last episode was Morgan Hampton, who was also in the Milestone Initiative.
That's a bad man right there.
Yes. So those who didn't listen during that episode, the Milestone Initiative was the brainchild of course, Milestone Media DC in partnership with Ally, which is a financial services company. And basically, the original Milestone became known for just so much talent that it brought to the comics industry. There are a lot of then newcomers who are now household names in comics that got their start at Milestone. And so when Milestone decided to relaunch a few years ago, that was a big part of the mission, was to try to find some new creators and help them get their starts in the industry as well. So there was this big application period. They selected 12 writers, 12 artists to sort of do like an online course that sort of culminated in like this big summit at the DC offices in Burbank, and go through like seminars and, make connections and so on. Right. So you were one of the writers chosen as part of that class. What made you decide to apply? Because at the time when all this is going on, you were pretty busy.
Yeah. Honestly, I was so busy. Keep that in the folder.
Okay.
Because honestly, that the pride thing was there. Like, man, they gotta know. They know who we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are they doing this instead of just, reaching out to us on their own?
Right.
But one of my friends, because I wasn't going to apply. And then one of my friends, she was like, I sit here and listen to you complain about, shipping out books and having to, manage artists and this and that and this and that. She's like, why don't you just, apply, see if you get in? Because even then you could be just, writing scripts, getting checks and going about your business, So I can't remember what the end date was, but I decided, I think the apps had to be turned in. Everything had to be turned in by like 12 o'clock a.m. Monday morning. so basically Sunday night.
Yeah.
So I, filled everything out on the Friday before that, and I wrote the script because we had to do like they gave prompts and you had to write like a script. And so I wrote the script, and then I didn't look at it all day Saturday. I just did whatever I was doing, whatever. And then I came back on Sunday evening, finished, went back, fixed up some stuff here and there in the script. And I just threw everything in there, press submit. And I'm like a big critic of myself. And so it's like most of the time when I write something, I'll be like, But this time I was like, oh, this is fire. This is fire. So send it off. And, but that was what prompted me, was just like finding more avenues. Like if I'm doing this full time, I need to be doing this full time. Yeah. When I had a job, I would be working 50 hours, sometimes more than that, because I got a laptop, I'm coming home and working, what I mean? So it's like, if I'm gonna be doing this, then let's do it. And so, it was intense, man. There was some interviews, and it was like you had to get past one, and then hopefully you get the next interview, that kind of stuff. Right. So it was cool.
So as someone who had made a name for yourself on the indie circuit, you built a business that had been successful at the time, right? You kind of come into it, I guess, hoping for more connections and things like that. But what's something that maybe surprised you that you learned through the Milestone Initiative? So
first, like my one of my main reasons, I wanted to see how they make comics. That was, because like, truth be told, like when I walked into the first DC party in New York Comic Con, I knew so many of the people that were in there already, So I wanted to see how they make comics. And honestly, I feel like I don't feel like I'm the best writer I could be. I feel like I still have room to grow and learn and, understand comics more. Cause we came into it from we're fans of comics, but I never took a how to write comics, class. I read like this, The Starving Artist, the old book. Like I read this and I'm like, man, like because it's still kind of cool. Yeah. And so I'm like, God, I didn't even know what I didn't know, Yeah. And the same with Tuskegee. So, but yeah, so coming into it, definitely, like Amy Chu was the instructor for the writers. And I learned a lot from her, like our courses, and then just like one-on-one time and stuff. She helped me to understand how important emotion is, like being able to bring emotions out of readers, stuff like that. I learned how to write like a professional comic script, because my scripts before that was like, I had all the elements, but they would be on, like, I'd have a script for the artist. I'd have, a script for him, instead of having everything in one. So I learned that. And then they taught us a lot of stuff about the business. I went into it already kind of understanding how this works. If I create a character, they might give me a little bit of money or anything like that, but they own that character. I create a story, like all that. I already understood that. So you can't burn me or hurt me in that area, because I already understand how that goes. This is your restaurant. I'm a chef, Yeah. So, but yeah, they taught us, like, stuff like, we did a character creation exercise, and I realized they did it because they wanted to show us there is a process where you can get credit for your character. They will pay you a little bit of money, and there's even a contract involved that says if it goes to TV or a movie or something like that, that you have a chance to get residuals. So it's like, if you don't know that and you just creating characters and like here, and you don't step up and say, hey, let's get this paperwork, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
then, and I mean, I'm sure that they made a point to teach us those things because of what's happened to people in the past,
Yeah.
maybe they didn't even always have that document. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I expected it. Okay, so I didn't go into it with low expectations. Um, but it was plain to see, as much as the courses and all that stuff were cool, but when we actually got to Burbank and had our, the little meet and greet thing, I was like, oh, they serious. Like this is serious. And they really did. Like, I'll be forever grateful for what they did, because they gave us a hell of a lot of content. And it was like the whole, from Monday through Friday of it was almost like being in college.
Yeah.
But this was good college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great.
That's dope. Yeah, no, Morgan was telling me how they just opened the Rolodex, so to speak. It was look, have at it, pitch us, talk to us. This shouldn't be the end,
And it was to see, so Reginald Hudlin, he's a very busy man.
Right.
For him to take a few days to be there, and then for Dennis Cowan to be there the entire time, and not just be there, be interacting, he even went out to dinner with us one night. I think somebody, I think I was in my room, but somebody was just messing with him, Dennis, you want to come eat with us? And he was like, oh, I don't know. And then he made a couple of calls, and he said, you know what? Yeah. And not only did he do that, but there's I don't know, probably 18 of us. And it was he made sure to come, sit with different, with
got you,
everybody and talk and, get to know. It was great, man. I was like, this ain't real. This ain't real.
That's crazy. That's dope though. Oh no, that's an amazing opportunity. We got a mutual friend that won't let me forget that he applied and did not get
I think I know who you're talking.
You know exactly who I'm talking about. But no. And I just had to shout him out right here just to rub it in. I always like to. But no. So the Milestone Initiative, right? You leave there with new understandings about the business, new insights, and then new context. And now you've been getting work outside of that, right? You wrote a story and the ghouls just want to have fun, starring Superman. That's crazy, right? Yeah. You got you're in the DC Power. Did a Mr. Terrific story. First of all, in the Mr. Terrific story, this dude is basically trying to save a city councilman. Is that a real person that he's saving?
No, not a real
okay.
In Atlanta. It's a created character. I modeled the character after somebody, but not a politician or anything.
Got you. So as you are you got a foot in both worlds, right? You're still very much doing your independent thing, hustling these comics at these cons. But then you're also doing the sort of work for hire stuff. What's your goal with work for hire? And how do you see it playing a role in your career?
I'll try to take as much of it as I can. I don't know. I did some work for hire, wrote a script for a company, a smaller company last year as well. It's going to be released late summer. It's part of an anthology, but I'm going to take it when it fits. If it fits, I'm not, if it's something, when I hear the idea or if I'm allowed to come up with my own idea, then I can rock with it. But the thing is, I'm looking at some of these guys. So Radney Barnes to me is the top of the top of the mountain for me. And this man is writing TV shows, movies, comics, he just, I don't understand how he does it. But those are that's like my Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And David Walker is another one of my, like, overwhelmingly one of my favorite writers. And he's prolific. And so I'm looking at it like, if they can do it. I had Matthew Rosenberg as my he was like my mentor for they gave us mentors for the Milestone thing.
Yeah.
And like, this dude was writing, like, when he was still taking his time out to, answer questions I had and look over stuff and all of that. But he was writing like 6 comics, like, where it's like 6 comics that have to be released monthly are being written by this man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if they're doing that, I could do, I don't want to be doing that.
Right.
But I would like to, keep going. So I'm always looking for those opportunities, paid opportunities, because I'm partnering on some stuff. Me and Jason Reeves, Jason Reeves, 133 Art.
I'm not familiar with him.
Oh yeah,
I have to check him out.
We have a dope story that we're pitching right now. So I'm doing partnerships with some people, but I'm like at a point where it's like I can't take on any more partnerships. Like,
right.
I'm gonna be spending my time. I need to, get paid. But yeah, I want to keep doing that. Honestly, that can help me to fund my my indie stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's, that's where, it's just a different level of love. Like, my indie books and stuff, they feel like children to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm not averse to it. Like, every once in a while, people reach out and be like, I know you're busy. I'm not that busy.
Right.
Let's talk.
Dope. So you've been pretty open, I guess, from the beginning, right, about your goals for some of these projects that you have, right? And animation is definitely at the top of the list for Tuskegee Airs, for Sadaka. Like, you talk about that sort of being present in your mind from the conception of these stories and these characters. Where are we in that sort of timeline? How are we looking?
So there's an animated, like a cinematic short that's being worked on. It's going to be really short, but it's going to get the point across for Tuskegee. So that's being worked on. As well as we have some other, like, lines. So with Tuskegee, people think I'm, I've actually had a couple people tell me I'm not telling the truth. But with Tuskegee, we were doing the pitch thing. We almost had a deal with Netflix. We had a verbal deal with Netflix. And then, some stuff happened on their side. We had another deal that almost went through where we were going to get funded and be able to oversee it ourselves. But that fell through because of some Donald Trump had, put in some, there were some changes to, trade laws and all that kind of stuff. So the people that were going to send the money were going to basically have to send what they were going to send us. They were going to have to pay almost double that in tariffs.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, we can't do that. And it's, animation is a lot of money. You know what I mean? So we actually stepped away from the pitch game because Hollywood it's a little shady, man. Like, we get it that if you're going to invest all this money to, help us make a show, we fully understand we're not going to have all the control and all that kind of stuff. But we do want to oversee, like, we didn't create Tuskegee Airs or Sadaka, like, to be something that just makes us a quick buck, there's love, there's real love and heart being put into these pages. So it was like, we're stepping away. And then we have some lines in the water to, about funding. The cool thing is, like, if somebody dropped the money today, we already have a very well-known, like, professional studio that's ready to go. We already have a very well-known executive producer that's ready to go. You know what I mean? So it's like, all we need is a few $1 million.
Just one last little detail,
Yeah, just that. That one seems to elude us, but and the same goes for Sadaka. It's funny because typically when we talk to people, it's like they like Sadaka, but they look at Tuskegee automatically and think that's the bigger, the draw because the lore, the Tuskegee Airmen, like all that stuff. Yeah. I get it. I ain't mad at it, but I can see, like what Sadaka does could be like really problematic, like in the world that I'm building for her. Yeah, like it could problematic in a good way. Like she, it could be good.
Yeah, Tuskegee Airs just feels made for TV, or like ready for TV in a way. I think it's mostly just that team aspect, right? There's not just one girl on the team. You got a bunch of different character like archetypes. You got like the hothead. You got the maverick, the guy that just wants to do his own thing, right? You got the nerd. Maybe you won't call him a nerd, but you've got so many different personalities there. Plus, you've got the mentor figure. So it's fleshed out in a way that just makes sense. So I see why that's like the quote unquote hotter property. Sadaka's dope though. Like, I want to see Sadaka. So I don't know. Yeah.
It'll come. It'll.
That's dope. So, well, look, man, I know you're busy prepping for Emerald City. Before you go, I forgot my last question. That's crazy. But what do you have in the works, man? What's coming next? What should we be on the lookout for?
So the next issue of Sadaka, we have a timelines series that we're going to start doing for Tuskegee, where it's basically we're going to have some shorter comics compiled in a book that gives so you can get to know people better through their, through different, incidents or, adventures that they have to go on. We're working on the next issue of the story of Solus. We have we're halfway done with the pencils and inks. I have a comic called Bridges that I'm doing with a couple of friends. It's about 4 superpower teenage girls who they're based in Oakland. We were so close. And then when I was going through trying to put everything together, I had to tell the artist, I'm like, you're going to hate me, but we need another page. So he's working on that page, but I'm really excited about that. I had my book, Swim Kelly Swim, the children's book. I did recently put that on Amazon. So we're trying to really get that rolling because that book is not just, it is entertaining, but it's not just entertainment. It's, like my goal is to demystify swimming for the little ones, for our kids, so they can, feel, see that if you learn how to do it, you can be great at it.
Right.
So, but then what else? I think we can talk about the crossover event that Advent Comics is doing.
Yeah, they just announced that today.
Yeah. I'm going to be writing a chapter of that.
Nice.
What else? Oh, and Atlantic Comic-Con. I got to talk about that.
Yes.
We're doing me and my friend Duran Flood, who is a huge comic book. I think he's got over 60,000 comics. He's a comic book maniac. And we've been talking about it for a couple of years. We finally pulled the trigger. So we're doing a convention called Atlantic Comic-Con in Norfolk, Virginia on the 17th and 18th of August.
Yeah.
So a lot of work is going into that. And I'm currently constantly looking for, new stuff to put out.
Now, I said that was my last question. It's not. So Swim Kelly Swim, Grandpa's Shoes, those are on Amazon, right? Your children's books. Why aren't your comics on Amazon?
It's a process, man. So like, trying to feel it out. Like if we do the on demand thing, like what's the quality of those comics going to be?
Yeah.
There's just so many questions, and I guess I think we're going to put the digital on Amazon.
Okay.
That should probably be coming soon.
Okay.
But I don't know if we're going to do like floppies, or maybe we do the graphic novel, or maybe we hurry up and get the rest of the art done and we put it all in one book and then put that on Amazon.
I'm down.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. How much more material is out there? I know you've got issue 4 is out, but what would you call complete on Tuskegee?
To finish the arc that we're on, we've decided it was originally supposed to be 6 episodes, 6 issues, but we've now decided that it needs to be 7.
Got it.
So, 7 would be ideal.
Okay. Dope. Well, I'll be on the lookout for the Tuskegee Heirs complete collection. I'm sure we'll hear about issues 6 and 7 soon. And 5. But yeah, man. Well, look, man, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us, man. I appreciate it. I know you're busy, so thank you. I really do appreciate it, man.
Man, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Real quick, where can they find you? What's your socials, your website? What we got?
Greg_Burnham 7 on IG, and I'm just Greg Burnham everywhere else, I think. TuskegeeAirs.com. Then I have platforml7.com. And then I think that's it. Swim Kelly Swim on Amazon.
Nice. Well, I'll make sure I put all that in the show notes and in the description of this video on YouTube. Thanks again, Greg, for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. This was, like I said, this was fun.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And just like that, we're going to wrap up today's episode of Comics Are Dope, the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Make sure that you, subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast platform you like to listen to. Give us a rating and a review. It actually goes a long way. Like, podcasts aren't algorithm based the way that like a YouTube video is. So your rating and review is our best chance at getting in front of more people. So leave a rating, leave a review. I guess unless you don't like it, then like don't give us a bad review, right? 5 stars only. No, I'm joking. But anyway, so check out the show on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@comicsaredope. That way you can find all of our interviews as well as weekly content, weekly breakdowns of the single issues that I'm grabbing and other comic reviews and things like that. All that available on YouTube. Also, don't forget the Kickstarter campaign for the Atlantic Comic Con does end on Sunday, June 2nd. So go to atlanticcomiccon.com. That way you can get all the information about the guests, the featured guests, the tickets, the panels, all of it. And hopefully you have a great time. I really wish I could meet you there. But anyway, till next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.